Hi everybody, Light Meadow Creations again, and we just got back from another big auction haul in Pender, Nebraska. We have a lot of neat vintage costume jewelry to share with you guys, and a lot of other neat vintage items. A vintage choker necklace brooch with rhinestones, some vintage earrings. We have a vintage star brooch with a moon face, and another moon brooch. And then these earrings here match that brooch. And then we have a cute wizard brooch. And another cute brooch that is an outhouse with a guy in there. And the door actually opens and closes. How cute is that? And then another vintage brooch, this telephone. That's real cute. Some vintage earrings. And then we got a vintage hat brooch. And I believe these earrings match with rhinestones. And then we have some really neat vintage rhinestone brooches here. All of them, I believe, are unmarked. But this one right here, the Starburst, is marked Weiss. And then this crown here is also unmarked, I believe. And then we have some vintage clip-on earrings. And then we have a vintage beaded choker necklace. And then we have another choker necklace with matching earrings. Vintage feather pen. A vintage angel wing pen with a saying. A vintage guest watch. And a vintage ladies watch. This is one of those angel ornaments that are beaded that you put together. And I believe it's never been opened. And then we hit the mother lode of 1980s earrings, guys. How cool is that? And I especially like these heart striped ones. And I really like the red and white striped ones. And these cute little watermelon heart earrings. And then going down, we have a fishy brooch with earrings to match. Some stars, that's perfect for 4th of July. Brooch with the earrings to match, a Noah's Ark brooch, a cute shoe, and then we have some various different brooches here, and some rhinestone earrings. Here is a beautiful vintage butterfly brooch with rhinestones. Here's another vintage butterfly brooch, some vintage pins. This is Art Deco from the 1920s, 30s, and it's a dress clip or scarf clip. Here's some different vintage brooches. Here is a leaf brooch with matching earrings. Here's some rhinestone brooches. And this here, these are vintage clip-on earrings. And here's some more clip-on earrings and brooches. This is Avon necklace with rhinestone. Here's another Avon set. It's a brooch and earrings. And this is a ring with a rhinestone and flower on it. And then we have some different brooches and pins here. And another brooch, and I believe these earrings match. It looks to be like Avon, but I don't see it marked. Here's another vintage brooch. And then here we have one with faux pearls and flowers. And then here's a cute heart brooch. And then we have some vintage little glass bugs brooches. Here are some more beautiful vintage butterfly brooches with rhinestones. How beautiful are they? And then we have a cute cat in a window with a moon brooch, a lady's head brooch. Here's a butterfly scarf clip. We have some more butterfly brooches here. This brooch reminds me of Harry Potter glasses. And I really like these skeleton earrings. How cute are they? Then we have a matching vintage rhinestone necklace and bracelet set. And then I believe these earrings, though, they look to be newer, so I don't think they go with that set. And some more butterfly brooches and a dragonfly. And then we have a bunch of different brooches here, and we got some more earrings. Then we have some vintage shell jewelry. We have a bracelet here, and then some earrings. And then there's a shell brooch and some more earrings and a bracelet. And then we have some vintage earrings. And then we have some very unique, neat ladies looking in mirrors, and they were both brooches. And then we have some more ladies and gentlemen brooches. And then we have some star earrings, vintage earrings. And then some more vintage earrings there. And then we have this vintage brooch and earring set here. And then we have a vintage necklace, rhinestone necklace, beaded necklace. Then we have some vintage, more vintage rhinestone. There's a pendant there, some vintage earrings, rhinestone earrings. And then we have a vintage brooch there, or lapel pin. And then we have some more vintage brooches and earrings here. Those are Avon. Cute little vintage ladybug brooch and earring set. Then we have a vintage double-sided cassette holder filled with Elvis Presley cassettes. And a vintage military field phone. A vintage colander. I have one just like this. That was my grandmother's. And a vintage survival kit. Looks like everything's in there.